Have you ever felt lonely? I know that's a silly question because you're probably saying, yeah, duh, Katie. Hasn't everyone at one point in their life? Well, according to Psychology Today, by their definition, loneliness is the state of distress or discomfort that results when one perceives a gap between one's desires for social connection and actual experiences of it. Even some people who are surrounded by others throughout the day or are in a long lasting marriage still experience a deep and pervasive loneliness. Research suggests that loneliness poses serious threats to well being as well as long term physical health. I want to say that last part again because I feel like it's important. Research suggests that loneliness poses serious threats to well being as well as long term physical health. Harvard Magazine stated in an article that came out in 2021, just after the pandemic, that the health implications of loneliness have become clearer over time. According to the research of Professor of Psychology and Neuroscience, Julianne Holt Lunstead, and her colleagues at Brigham Young University, the heightened risk of mortality from loneliness equals that of smoking 15 cigarettes a day or being an alcoholic, and exceeds the health risks associated with obesity. Now that's frightening. So, why all this information and talk about loneliness today? Well, I want to talk to you about how one amazing place on earth has really figured out how to address this thing called loneliness. Through a tradition of support, one community has really risen above it while building lifelong soul connections with each other. So I'd love for you to join me today as we travel to this very special place, known as one of the world's blue zones. Welcome to the Anxious Adventurer podcast. I'm Katie Schlegel, your host. I've traveled to a lot of places around this beautiful planet, seen so many jaw-dropping sights, and have met some pretty amazing human beings along the way. Now, if you don't know this yet, I'm an anxious adventurer. If you're wondering what an anxious adventurer even means, well, to put it quite simply, it means when I travel, I can get anxious or stressed out maybe a little easier or more often than the average person. However, over my many years of traveling, I've learned to tap into something special that makes traveling so much easier and more fun. That is my intuition. And the more I've learned to trust my gut during my travels, the more synchronistic, amazing, and even healing my travel experiences have been. If you're new around here, I'm assuming you found this podcast because of the name, because you too are an anxious adventurer. So welcome. This is a safe place to be yourself. My hope is that you use these travel stories, experiences, and tips and tools as a way to help you tap into your intuition so you too can be swept off into the wonderful world that traveling can open up for you. Traveling can be so healing for people like us if you have the tools and understanding for it to be so. And the good news is, you don't have to do this alone. I'm here to be your guide and to help you on your path to healing your anxiousness and stress around traveling. So get ready to fill up your cup with magical moments where you find out that this world is really a friendly place. You just have to change the way you look at it, follow your gut, and step out your door. And don't you worry, I am right here beside you. Okay, so where are we headed today? Well, grab your passports and pack your bags because we're headed to an island off the mainland of Japan. Welcome to Okinawa, Japan. Okinawa is a Japanese prefecture comprising of around 160 islands in the East China Sea between Taiwan and Japan's mainland. It's known for its tropical climate, broad beaches, and coral reefs, as well as many World War II sites. These 160 islands are both large and small, inhabited and uninhabited. An authentic Okinawan experience is unique and special, one that is filled with cultural treasures, outdoor adventures, and world-class diving. But these are just some of the reasons why people are drawn to these islands off the mainland of Japan. There's also another aspect that makes Okinawa special, and it's the reason why we are traveling to this particular place. Today, I want to introduce you to a community of people there that have been drawing the eyes of researchers for many, many years now. It's a group of people that practice the tradition of moai. Have you heard of this tradition? Moai means a group of lifelong friends, a social support group that forms in order to provide varying support from social, financial, health, or spiritual interests. These groups come together and form in their childhood, which can extend well into their hundreds. Yes, hundreds, you heard that right. Here's an excerpt from bluezones.com that explains how these social support groups began. The term moai originated hundreds of years ago as a means of a village's financial support. Originally, moais were formed to pool the resources of an entire village for projects or public works. If an individual needed capital to buy land or take care of an emergency, the only way was to pool money locally. Today, the idea has expanded to become more of a social support network, a cultural tradition for built-in companionship. In small neighborhoods across Okinawa, friends meet for a common purpose. Sometimes daily and sometimes a couple days a week. They'll meet to gossip, experience life, and to share advice and even financial assistance when needed. They call these groups their moai. And here's where this tradition gets fascinating. Traditionally, groups of about 5 young children were paired together. It was at this time that they made a commitment to each other for life. They became each other's second family. These 5 children would then meet regularly with their moai throughout their lifetimes for both work and play, as well as to pool resources when needed. And some of these moais have lasted for over 90 years. During his research and explorations on Okinawa, the Blue Zone Solution author Dan Buettner spent some time with one Okinawan, Goze Nisato, who was still spry, energetic, and cooked and gardened daily at 104 years old. Here's an excerpt from the book that really impacted me when I read about Nisato and her moai. A couple days a week, her moai, 4 women who, together with Nisato, had, at a young age, committed to one another for life, stopped by for mugwort tea and conversation. Whenever things had gotten rough in Nisato's life, when she'd run short of cash or when her husband had died 46 years ago, she'd counted on her moai and the Okinawan sense of social obligation, yorimaru, to support her. Her friends had relied on a lifetime of Nisato's support in return. In her own words, Nisato said, "It's much easier to go through life knowing there's a safety net." Can you imagine having a built-in support system your entire life? A group of friends who stuck by your side through thick and thin, no matter what, for 90 years? That would be amazing. As one who often isolates herself from the outside world for various reasons, both good and bad, I've been getting the sense that this isolation and loneliness pandemic needs to come to an end. If I've learned anything throughout these 4 years after physically losing one of my key supporters in my life, my mom, it's that we are so much stronger, healthier, and happier when we come together and support each other in all aspects of life. Lisa Berkman, a professor at Harvard University, who's an expert in social connectedness and longevity, studied and looked into the connection between different social groups and greater longevity. This study found that the type of connection between people was irrelevant. Whether it was a spousal relationship or a tight-knit group of friends, she found that all that mattered was the bond the group shared. More and more each year, research is showing that your social connections can have a long-term impact on your health and happiness. Did you know that you mimic the habits of your 3 closest friends? Research is also showing that if you share similar values, healthy habits, and life goals with a group you bond with, then you're likely to 1. Experience less stress, 2. Be happier, and 3. Live longer. Loneliness can decrease your life expectancy by 8 years. Older people without close friends are more likely to develop chronic diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, and depression than their counterparts. They're also at high risk for suffering from a stroke. But with each happy friend you add to your group of people, you increase your happiness by 15%. How cool is that? That's why happiness is so contagious. I wanted to talk about this today because I think this research and the information coming out about loneliness is really important and something we need to start taking seriously. I've been mentioning how I'm creating a whole new experience with Mariposa Skies. Every week, this vision is becoming clearer and clearer. I know there's a community aspect to it as well. There always has been. But the community I'm now dreaming of is much more like this tradition of moai in Okinawa. What I'm seeing is that it will be a support group that will have a social, health, and spiritual aspects to it. So we too can live longer and better lives. Because it's not just the matter of living a long life, but living a quality life too. I'm not sure how all this will come together just yet. But I know more things will be revealed as time unfolds, so I'll keep you in the loop. I just wanted to introduce you to this tradition today as I think it's one we can adopt and start creating our own social connectedness with each other. I know I have a lot of ideas and many of them have been flops or just gone flat as I lose interest in them. But if this is something you'd be interested in being a part of, let me know. Send me a DM on Mariposa Skies Instagram or shoot me an email. Like I said, this is just the beginning stages of its unfolding. But if you'd like to be on the ground level, let's please connect. Well, that's all I have for you today. Short and sweet. I hope you learned something new or at least got some food for thought. I, for one, have been really fascinated with this moai tradition and have been wanting to share all about it in one of my episodes for a while now. I do feel like loneliness is a very important aspect that needs to be considered in the rise of anxiety as well. Since the pandemic, there's been research suggesting that loneliness is in fact connected to our anxiety. I put some links in the show notes on various articles I mentioned in today's episode, so you can dive deeper into these topics if you'd like. I also included the one on how loneliness is related to anxiety and depression. Remember, you never have to be truly alone in this life. Reach out to me or someone you love and trust and start building your own moai support group today. And hopefully, one day in the near future, we will co-create one together. Before I sign off, if you liked this episode or love the podcast, please drop a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. It really does help get the show out to more people, and I want to thank you in advance. I also want to invite you to come on over and join my community on Instagram at Mariposa Skies. And if you want to be my next guest on the podcast, or maybe you have an amazing travel story you want to tell, send an email to anxiousadventurersclub@gmail.com. I'd love to feature you here on the podcast. Okay, that's it for now. Until next time, my dear anxious adventurers. Ciao. Besos. Mwah.